everyone, and welcome to Frame Focus, where we inspire and motivate you to make better photos. Today we're going to talk about composition, and we're at Peebles Island here in Cohoes, and it is about 20 degrees, so I've got a winter hat on. It's pretty cold, and I think we're going to do a little bit of a nature walk. So follow me. Let's see what we can come up with, and hopefully it'll be inspiring. So the first location I stopped at was a patch of moss that I had found next to a tree trunk. And the reason why I stopped here is because it is a very interesting look when you can combine color and textures together. If you look in the image, you can see some beautiful color and beautiful textures as it kind of scrolls through. And this is the perfect example of what textures should look like in photograph, and the angle it was taken at. So let's take a look at the next one. Now if you look at this photograph, it is a little bit different, and what we did was we added a focal point to it. I added that acorn into the shot to give it a more dramatic, dynamic look. Depth is everything in a really good photograph. So you can add depth and you can add a focal point to it, like we added the acorn in this patch of moss, then you'll see that it really brings out the creative part of that photo, and it just draws your eye right to it. Let's move on. So you saw the patch of moss that we photographed a little earlier, and you can tell that we used textures and colors to emphasize the photograph. But do you remember that photograph as well that had the acorn in it? We had obviously placed that acorn there for a specific reason, so that we can show you that a focal point within patterns or textures in the photograph can enhance and add to the photograph. So if it was just the patch of moss, yes, it would be exciting because you'd be able to see the detail in the moss and in the coloration and how it changes, how it varies from one tone to another, and that is nice, but it is not as doesn't add as much pop, as much creativity to the photograph as if you were to add a focal point. So remember, in every photograph you have, if you add a focal point, or if you find something in nature that just happens to be there, basically a stone in an empty pond, that is super important to have. So if you're wondering what camera we're using today, we happen to be using a Lytro light field camera, a Lytro Illume. And this camera, the reason why I'm using it today is because it's going to give us a really nice quick snapshot. We're using all automatic exposure for the time being, so we're going to let the camera do what it needs to do to get the shot. We are also going to be using that camera because it takes some really, really nice macro photography. And I'm using macro photography to kind of give you an example of what textures, shapes, lines, designs, and subject matter would look like in a photograph that you can make it maybe a little bit extra special. So let's use this camera, put it through its paces, see how it goes, and move on to our next subject. So I made a stop here for a reason, because this is one of my favorite locations on Peebles Island besides the waterfall, and that is the grapevine. Towards the center of this island there are huge grapevine branches all around us, and you can see it with that one right there, right in the center of the frame. There is a huge grapevine branch just spiraling straight up to the top, and that is one of the grapevine branches we were going to photograph. So let's get a little closer and see if we can create some shapes. So for this next shot, this is our grapevine branch that we decided to shoot, and actually the 3 grapevines that are entangled around this tree trunk. Now what you can see I had done is I had actually shot it perpendicularly to the tree itself. Now it adds nice creativity, nice dimension to it, because obviously there are 3 lines going through it. And in terms of shapes, remember we were looking for shapes, there are some triangular shapes and cylindrical shapes throughout, but you can't really see it too well in this particular photograph. So what we'll do is move on to the next one, and you'll see I have angled the next shot, and this one will be a little bit more dramatic and a little bit more in depth. Let's take a look. So here we are in our next photograph, and as you can see, it's the exact same subject matter. It is a shot at an oblique angle, or an angle we're shooting from the bottom up, and you can see it really adds a lot of depth and a lot of dimension to the subject matter itself. And on top of that, you can see a little bit more of a dramatic and, of course, subtle shapes, triangular shapes in the background, triangular shapes around the tree trunk itself because of the grapevines cutting through it. That is what we want to see. All right, so now we are at our next location, and this is a swamp. Yep, you heard it. It's a swamp, and nothing too spectacular, but let's get it a little bit tighter, see what we can do with some of these lines, some of these shapes we see. So in this photograph, as it slowly comes into focus, you're going to see that there are 3 trees that are coming around. And what I was going for in this particular shot was I was going for lines. There's the lines in the foreground, in the middle, and also in the background. And the reason why I wanted to shoot it this way, because when we talk about lines and photography, we are not just talking about lines across the frame from left to right. We are also talking about lines and depth. Remember, we're always talking about depth from front to back. So that's always something to keep in mind. It gives your creative photos a lot more interest, and it kind of draws your eye to it. So let's move on. So I almost forgot. We had 2 other things we need to talk about, and that is color and angles. So color, contrast in color, continuity in color, that is also what makes a good photograph. If you can have some distinction in contrast and coloration, so blue as opposed to yellow, yellow as opposed to red, red as opposed to blue, those are the type of contrasting colors that really seem to work well. So remember, contrast. Another thing too as well, continuity in color. So if you can have gradations of color, so from browns to a light tan to a gray, that kind of thing, those are also colors that are very, very important to keep in mind. Now, not those specific colors, but just the gradation of color. So moving smoothly from one color tone to another up and down the color spectrum, that's important stuff. Also angles. You had seen earlier that we photographed a grapevine spiral going up a branch. The way we photographed it was 2 different ways. We photographed it kind of obliquely, and we photographed it in a very flat kind of surface look. And you can see the differences in the photograph. One is a good photograph, and the other one is a much better, more distinct photograph because it adds a little bit of dimension and depth to it. So thank you for coming along with us to People's Island. It's a beautiful, beautiful park. And we're going to go back to the studio. We're going to take a look at a few more photographs that we captured, not really just in the park, but a few other photographs outside the park, maybe with some different subject matter. And we'll discuss a few more things. But thanks for coming along, and we'll see you back there. Hey guys, we're back at the studio today. Thank you so much for coming to the nature walk with us. It was so much fun. I really, really want you guys to, of course, get something out of this video, out of these videos that I create. If you do, that's awesome. I want you to get inspired. So next time you go out and you take your camera, I want you to show me the creativity that you have. So let's do that. Let's use that creative power that we have and go from there. Thank you so much again, and please like this video if you got something out of it. Subscribe to us. We'll keep this thing going. We'll make it fun and exciting as we go along. And again, also like us on Facebook and check out our website at www.ph3pics.com. See what we can do. All right, see you guys next time, and peace.